The arrival, the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, was the largest room ever built by any species. It floated in space, attached to a massive station called Nexus Prime. Here, hundreds of alien races came together to discuss trade, borders, and the small problems that arose between worlds. The chamber was shaped like a bowl, with seats rising up on all sides. At the center was a single podium where speakers addressed the council. On this day, the council was discussing something boring: a trade dispute between two species over mining rights. Most delegates were not paying attention. Some were sleeping. Others were talking quietly among themselves. High Arbiter Velos, the ancient being who led the council, sat on his elevated throne and tried to look interested. He had led this council for 300 years. He had seen everything. Nothing surprised him anymore. Ambassador Kang Jisu sat in the human section, which was small and placed near the back of the chamber. Humanity had only joined the council 12 years ago. They were considered a minor species, young, weak, not important. Most aliens did not even know where Earth was located on the star maps. Jisu was used to being ignored. She spent most council sessions reading reports and waiting for the day when her species would matter. The Kovani delegation sat near the front. They were a powerful species, reptilian in appearance, with scaled skin and cold eyes. Their empire controlled 40 star systems. Commander Thrall, their military leader, attended every council session. He never spoke much. He just watched and waited, like a predator studying prey. The boring discussion was interrupted by an alert. A human diplomatic vessel had arrived at Nexus Prime without warning or invitation. This was against protocol. Ships were supposed to announce themselves days in advance. High Arbiter Velos raised one of his 6 arms and called for silence. "What is the meaning of this?" he asked. His voice was deep and carried across the entire chamber without effort. Ambassador Kang Jisu looked at her communication device. She had received no warning about this. Something was wrong. She could feel it in her chest, a cold weight settling in her heart. "The human vessel requests immediate docking permission," announced a council officer. "They say it is a matter of galactic security." Velos made a sound that might have been laughter. "Galactic security? From the humans?" He looked around the chamber. Several delegates were smiling. The idea that humanity could have anything important to say was amusing to them, but Velos was curious. He had lived long enough to know that strange events sometimes led to interesting outcomes. "Allow them to dock," he said. "Let us see what our young friends have to say." The chamber waited. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Delegates grew restless. Some began to leave their seats. Then the main doors of the grand chamber opened. President Park Do-hun walked in. The chamber fell silent. It was almost unheard of for a species leader to appear at the council without invitation. Presidents and kings and emperors sent ambassadors. They did not come themselves. Yet here was the leader of all humanity, walking across the floor of the grand chamber like he owned it. He was not a tall man. He was not physically impressive. He wore a simple dark suit, not the elaborate robes that other species leaders preferred. But there was something in the way he moved, something in his eyes. He walked like a man who had already made a decision, and would not be moved from it. Behind him came Admiral Yoon Hana. She wore the full military dress uniform of the United Earth Federation Fleet. Medals covered her chest. Her face was stone. She did not look at any of the aliens. She looked straight ahead, as if she was walking into battle. A security detail followed them. 10 soldiers in combat armor, carrying weapons that were definitely not permitted in the council chamber. Several delegates rose to protest. High Arbiter Velos raised his arms for calm. "President Park," Velos said, "this is most unusual. Weapons are forbidden in this chamber. Your guards must, they stay, President Park said. His voice was not loud, but it cut through the chamber like a blade. After what has happened, I will not go anywhere without protection. Velos paused. There was something in the human's voice, pain, anger, and something else. Something that made even the ancient arbiter feel uneasy. What has happened? Velos asked. President Park walked to the central podium. He placed his hands on the surface and looked out at the hundreds of species gathered before him. For a long moment, he said nothing. The silence grew heavy. Then he spoke. 48 hours ago, military forces attacked human settlements. Luna, Mars, the outer colonies. They struck without warning, without mercy. They bombed our cities. They killed our people, our elderly, our children. He paused. His hands gripped the podium harder. Earth itself was struck. Seoul, Tokyo, New York, Cairo, burning. 2.3 million of our people are dead. The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates shouted questions. Some demanded proof. Others simply stared in shock. Ambassador Kang Jisoo felt tears running down her face. She had known something was wrong. She had not known it was this. Commander Thrall rose from his seat. This is a fabrication, he declared. A pathetic attempt by a minor species to gain sympathy. The humans have no enemies. Who would attack them? They have nothing worth taking. President Park turned his head slowly to look at Thrall. There was no expression on his face. The attacking ships carried Corvani military signatures. The weapons used were Corvani design. The communications we intercepted were in Corvani military codes. The chamber went completely silent. Thrall's scales seemed to darken. Lies. Human lies. High Arbiter Velos leaned forward. These are serious accusations. Do you have evidence? President Park nodded to Ambassador Kang Jisoo. She rose from her seat, her hand shaking, and began transmitting data packets. Every delegate's console lit up. Information flooded their screens. Attack patterns, weapon signatures, ship identification codes, communications transcripts, satellite footage of burning cities. The holographic displays around the chamber flickered to life. Images appeared. A city on Luna, flames rising from shattered domes. A refugee ship fleeing Mars, surrounded by debris. A street in Seoul, bodies lying in the rubble. A child's toy, half buried in ash. President Park let them watch. Let them see. When the images finally stopped, he spoke again. This council will address what your member has done. He looked at Velos, then at Thrall, then at every delegate in turn. Or humanity will address it ourselves. We did not come here to beg. We came here to give you a choice. Stand with us. Stand aside. Or stand against us. He straightened his back. But know this, we will have justice. Whether this council helps us or not. The Grand Chamber had never been so quiet. For the first time in 300 years, High Arbiter Velos had nothing to say. The evidence, the silence in the Grand Chamber lasted for almost a full minute. Then everyone began talking at once. Delegates shouted at each other. Some demanded immediate action against the Corvani. Others called the humans liars. Commander Thrall stood at his seat, his scaled face twisted with anger, screaming that this was a conspiracy. High Arbiter Velos struck his staff against the floor. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. Slowly, the noise died down. Order, Velos commanded. We will have order. He turned his ancient eyes toward President Park. These accusations are the most serious any species has ever made in this chamber. Before we proceed, we must examine the evidence in detail. President Park nodded. He stepped aside and gestured toward Admiral Yoon Hana. My fleet commander will present our military analysis. Admiral Yoon Hana walked to the podium. She moved with the confidence of someone who had spent 30 years commanding ships and soldiers. She pressed a button, and new holographic displays appeared around the chamber. The attack began at 0347 Universal Time, she said. Her voice was calm and professional, like she was giving a routine briefing. 47 warships entered human space through 3 separate jump points. They moved in attack formation. No warnings. No communications. No demands. She pointed to a display showing ship silhouettes. These are the vessels that attacked us. The design is Corvani. The engine signatures are Corvani. The weapon systems are Corvani. We have analyzed every aspect of these ships. There is no doubt about their origin. Commander Threll interrupted. Perhaps someone wanted you to think they were Corvani ships. A false flag operation. Surely your primitive technology could not detect such a trick. Yoon Hana looked at him. Her face showed nothing, but her eyes were cold. We intercepted communications between the attacking ships. Would you like to hear them? She did not wait for an answer. She pressed another button. Audio filled the chamber. Harsh voices speaking in the Corvani military dialect. Orders to target population centers. Reports of successful strikes. Celebrations when human defense stations were destroyed. And then, clear as crystal, command confirms total destruction of primary targets. The humans are broken. Return to Corvani space for resupply. The chamber was silent again. That voice, Yoon Hana said, belongs to Fleet Captain Varric of the Corvani 3rd Attack Wing. We have verified the voice pattern. It is a perfect match. Threll's scales had gone pale. This is fabricated. Humans are known for their deception. Then let us verify, said a new voice. Everyone turned. Delegate Moran of the Solari had risen from her seat. The Solari were a peaceful species, known for their advanced sensor technology and their honesty. They had no military. They had no enemies. Every species in the galaxy trusted them. My people maintain long-range sensor archives, Moran said. Her voice was soft but carried through the chamber. We observe all major activities in this region of space. If the humans are telling the truth, our archives will confirm it. If they are lying, our archives will reveal it. High Arbiter Velos nodded slowly. A fair proposal. Delegate Moran, will you open your archives for independent verification? I will. Threll jumped to his feet. I object. The Solari have always been sympathetic to minor species. Their verification cannot be trusted. This entire proceeding is, you object to neutral verification. Velos asked. His voice had grown sharp. If your empire is innocent, Commander Threll, what do you have to fear? Threll opened his mouth, closed it, sat down. The verification took 3 hours. During that time, President Park stood motionless at the edge of the chamber. He did not sit. He did not eat. He did not speak. He simply waited. Ambassador Kang Jisu brought him water once. He thanked her quietly but did not drink. While they waited, Yoon Hana shared more evidence. Footage from defense satellites. Testimonies from survivors. Medical reports from hospitals overwhelmed with casualties. Each piece of evidence added weight to the truth. And throughout the chamber, delegates began to remember things. Small things. A Corvani diplomat asking questions about human population centers last year. Corvani ships spotted near human space 3 months ago. Comments from Corvani officials about how humans were expanding too fast. Finally, Delegate Moran rose again. The verification is complete. She looked around the chamber, her large eyes filled with sadness. The Solari archives confirmed the human account. The attack originated from Corvani space. The ships were Corvani military vessels. The weapon signatures match Corvani military stockpiles. There is no possibility of fabrication. The chamber erupted again. Several delegations immediately announced they were ending trade agreements with the Corvani. Others demanded emergency sanctions. The Corvani delegation sat in stunned silence, all except Commander Thrall. He stood slowly. When he spoke, his voice was different, calmer, more controlled. Very well. I acknowledge that Corvani ships were involved in this incident. But this was not sanctioned by our government. This was the action of a rogue faction. Extremists who acted without authorization. We will investigate. We will punish those responsible. But the Corvani Empire itself is not to blame. The chamber went quiet, waiting for the human response. President Park finally moved. He walked back to the podium and looked at Thrall. When he spoke, his voice was soft, almost gentle, but there was steel beneath the softness. Your rogue faction used your Empire's ships, your Empire's weapons, your Empire's soldiers. They launched from your Empire's ports. They returned to your Empire's space. He leaned forward slightly. Whether your government ordered this attack or simply permitted it, my people are dead. 2.3 million of my people are dead. Mothers, fathers, children, gone. He straightened. You speak of investigation, of punishment. But I have seen no shock on your face today, Commander Thrall. No surprise. You knew. Perhaps you ordered it yourself? Perhaps you simply allowed it. It does not matter to me. He turned to face High Arbiter Velos. We have presented our evidence. We have proven our case. Now we wait to see what this council will do. Velos spread his 6 arms in a gesture of uncertainty. What do you want, President Park? What does humanity demand? President Park looked at him for a long moment. Then he looked at Thrall. Then at every delegate in the chamber. His gaze was heavy, final. We do not demand anything from this council, he said. We came here as a courtesy. We came here to give you the chance to act, to prove that this body means something, that justice exists among the stars. He began walking toward the exit. Admiral Yunhana and the guards fell in behind him. But if this council cannot act, he said without turning around, if this council will not act, then humanity will act alone. And I promise you this. We will not stop until every ship that attacked our homes is burning. Until every commander who ordered those attacks answers for their crimes. Until every species in this galaxy understands that attacking Earth was the worst mistake anyone could make. He reached the door and paused. His back was still turned. You have 48 hours to decide. Then we begin. With you or without you. The doors closed behind him. In the Grand Chamber, no one spoke for a very long time. The revelation the Galactic Council went into closed session. For 18 hours, delegates argued behind sealed doors. Ambassador Kang Jisoo was not allowed inside. She waited in the human embassy, a small building on Nexus Prime that suddenly felt very crowded. President Park had returned to Earth. Admiral Yunhana had gone with him. Now Jisoo was alone, surrounded by junior diplomats who looked to her for answers she did not have. Meanwhile, across the stars, humanity was not waiting. On Earth, every shipyard had gone to full production. Workers pulled double shifts, then triple shifts. They did not complain. They had all lost someone in the attack, or knew someone who had. Ships that were half-built were pushed to completion. Ships that were old and retired were pulled from storage and repaired. Civilian cargo vessels were brought in for military conversion. Weapons were bolted to their hulls. Armor was welded to their frames. They would not be beautiful. They would not be elegant. But they would fight. General Beek Sunho stood in a training facility outside of Bizen, watching thousands of new soldiers drill. These were not professional warriors. They were teachers and farmers and office workers and students. 3 days ago, they had never held a weapon. Now they trained with a focus that scared their instructors. They did not laugh or complain or ask for breaks. They just trained. When the instructors asked why they had volunteered, the answers were always the same. My sister was on Luna. My parents were in Tokyo. My children were in Cairo. I want to fight in orbit around Earth. Admiral Yunhana coordinated the fleet. She had not slept in 3 days. She survived on coffee and determination. Her officers worried about her. She ignored their concerns. There was too much to do. The fleet was not ready. It would never be ready. But it would launch anyway. President Park sat in his office, reading reports. Casualty numbers that kept climbing as rescue teams found more bodies. Infrastructure damage that would take decades to repair. Messages from citizens who had lost everything but still wanted to help. He read every message. He answered as many as he could. And between messages, he made plans. Then Ambassador Kang Jisoo called. "They have made a decision," she said. Her voice was flat, tired. "You should hear it yourself." An hour later, President Park stood before a communication screen. High Arbiter Velos appeared on the display, surrounded by other council leaders. The ancient alien looked uncomfortable. "The Galactic Council has reached a decision regarding the Corvani attack on human territories," Velos announced. "After careful deliberation, we have concluded the following." He paused. President Park waited. "The Council formally condemns the actions taken against humanity. We call upon the Corvani Empire to identify and punish those responsible. We impose economic sanctions on Corvani military industries for a period of 20 standard years. We establish a fund to provide humanitarian assistance to affected human populations." Velos paused again. "However, the Council does not authorize military intervention. We strongly advise humanity to accept reparations and avoid escalation. A prolonged conflict would destabilize the region and harm all species involved." President Park said nothing. "We understand this may not be the response you hoped for," Velos continued. "But the Council must consider the broader implications. The Corvani Empire is a major power. Open warfare would have consequences that extend far beyond your species. We must think of the greater good." Still, President Park said nothing. Velos began to look nervous. "President Park? Do you have a response?" "I expected nothing more," President Park said quietly. "And nothing less." He reached out and ended the communication far away on the Corvani homeworld. Another meeting was taking place. Commander Thrall stood before the Corvani ruling council. These were the 7 most powerful beings in the Empire. They sat on thrones of black stone, looking down at Thrall with cold reptilian eyes. "The attack failed," said the eldest council member. "Her name was Overlord Vasca, and she had ruled for 200 years. You promised us a quick victory. You promised that the humans would break under pressure. Instead, they stand united. They prepare for war. And now the galaxy watches." Thrall lowered his head. "The humans were stronger than our intelligence suggested, but they are still weak. Their fleet is small. Their technology is inferior. If we strike again, no." Vasca raised one clawed hand. "We will not strike again. Not yet. Let them come to us. Let them spend their resources attacking our borders. When they are exhausted, we will destroy them. But Overlord, the decision is made." Vasca leaned forward. "Tell me, Thrall, why did we attack the humans in the first place? Remind the Council." Thrall straightened. "Because they were growing too fast. Their population doubles every 50 years. They spread to new worlds like a disease. They are adaptable, resourceful. In another century, they would rival us." We had to stop them before they became a threat. And what was your assessment of their psychology? We believed they would fracture under pressure. Most species do. Destroy their homes and they scatter. Kill their leaders and they surrender. Humans seem no different. Vaska made a sound like grinding stones. It was the Kovani version of laughter. You were wrong. Our analysts reviewed human history after the attack. Do you know what they found? Thrall waited. Humans do not fracture under pressure. They unite. Every great crisis in their history has brought them closer together. Wars, plagues, natural disasters. They fight each other constantly in peace. But when something threatens them all, they become one. Vaska stood, towering over Thrall. We did not weaken them. We made them stronger. We gave them a common enemy. We made them remember what they are. Back on Earth, Ambassador Kang Jisu received a message through unofficial channels. A Kovani diplomat she had met years ago, someone who had always seemed different from the others, had sent her a classified document. It was an internal Kovani analysis of humanity. Written before the attack, she read it with shaking hands. Document described humans as individually weak but collectively dangerous. It noted their unusual ability to bond under pressure rather than fragmenting. It recommended that any attack on humanity must be total and immediate, destroying them completely before they could organize a response. Half measures, the document warned, would only make them more dangerous. The Kovani had known exactly what they were doing. They had just failed to do it completely. Jisu forwarded the document to President Park. He read it in silence. When he finished, he called Admiral Yoon Hana. How soon can the fleet be ready? 3 days, she replied. Maybe 2 if we push harder. Push harder. President Park stood and walked to his window. Outside, he could see the reconstruction crews already working on damaged buildings. Cranes moving through the Seoul skyline. People in the streets helping each other clear debris. A group of children placing flowers at a memorial site. The Kovani had wanted to break humanity. Instead, they had reminded humans who they were. A species that built things. A species that protected its own. A species that never, ever forgot. They made a mistake, President Park said to himself. And now they will learn what that mistake costs. He turned away from the window and began preparing for war. The response to human fleet launched on a cold morning. Admiral Yoon Hana stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UEF Defiance. Around her, officers worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. No one spoke unless necessary. They all knew what they were about to do. They all knew many of them would not come back. Through the viewports, Hana could see the rest of the fleet. 237 ships of various sizes and designs. Some were proper warships, built for combat. Others were converted civilian vessels, cargo haulers with weapons attached, mining ships with armor welded to their hulls. Compared to the Kovani armada, they looked like toys, but they were human. And they were angry. All ships report ready, Admiral, her executive officer announced. Hana nodded. Send the message. Across the fleet, speakers crackled to life. President Park's voice filled every ship. To all members of the United Earth Federation fleet, you know why we are here. You know what was done to our homes, to our families, to our world. The Galactic Council told us to accept reparations and move on. They told us that justice was too expensive. That peace was more important than our dead. A pause. The fleet waited. We disagree. Today, we fly to answer for 2.3 million voices that were silenced. Not for revenge, not for conquest, but because some things cannot be allowed. Some lines cannot be crossed. Some crimes cannot be forgiven. We will show the galaxy that humanity protects its own. Always. Another pause. Come home safe. All of you. The communication ended. Hannah took a deep breath. Fleet jump in 30 seconds. All hands, prepare for combat. The ships vanished into faster-than-light travel, racing toward Kovanni space. The first battle happened at the Proxima Relay, a strategic junction that controlled access to human territory. The Kovanni had stationed a defense force there, 30 warships under the command of Captain Varric, the same officer whose voice had been heard in the intercepted communications. Varric expected an easy victory. His ships were bigger. His weapons were more powerful. His crews were professional soldiers with decades of experience. The humans were amateurs flying converted cargo. Ships thought he was wrong. The human fleet did not attack in the formal patterns that Kovanni expected. They came from multiple directions at once, in waves that seemed chaotic but were actually carefully coordinated. Civilian ships stayed at the edges, serving as sensor platforms and communication relays. Combat vessels struck in quick raids, hitting Kovanni ships and pulling back before they could respond. And the humans fought like they had nothing to lose. Kovanni doctrine said that ships should retreat when damage reached 30%. Human ships kept fighting at 50%, 60%, 70%. Crews abandoned burning sections and continued operating from whatever remained. Damaged ships rammed their Kovanni attackers rather than surrender. Captain Varric sent urgent messages to command. The humans are insane. They do not retreat. They do not surrender. They simply keep coming. His last message was cut short when a human destroyer crashed into his bridge at full speed. The human crew had evacuated 30 seconds before impact, packed into escape pods that scattered into space. But the destroyer itself, engines overloaded and locked on course, hit Varric's flagship like a spear through armor. The Battle of Proxima Relay lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 23 Kovanni ships were destroyed or captured. Human losses were higher, 31 ships lost, but the relay was in human hands. Across the galaxy, other species watched in disbelief. On the occupied human colonies, the situation was different. General Beak Sunho led the ground forces. His mission was simple: liberate every human settlement that the Kovanni had taken. The Kovanni expected to find broken refugees, people too scared and traumatized to resist. They found something else. On Luna, the Kovanni occupation force had set up headquarters in what used to be a school. They thought it would be safe there. They thought wrong. The resistance had been organizing since the first day. Teachers and parents and teenagers who refused to give up. They had hidden weapons. They had mapped Kovanni patrol routes. They had been waiting. When Sunho's transports landed, the resistance struck. Explosions lit up the lunar surface. Kovanni soldiers found themselves attacked from every direction. By the time Sunho's regular troops reached the school, the resistance had already taken it back. A 12-year-old girl handed Sunho a Kovanni flag she had torn down herself. "We kept it safe for you," she said. "We knew you would come." Sunho had to look away so his soldiers would not see him cry. On Mars, the Kovanni commander was Overseer Gran. He was a veteran of many campaigns. He had conquered worlds before. He had never seen anything like the humans. "They fight like animals," he reported to Commander Thrall. "No, worse than animals. Animals know when they are beaten. These humans continue even when there is no hope. We kill 10, and 100 more appear. We destroy their shelters, and they dig new ones. We take their weapons, and they fight with rocks and tools and their bare hands." Thrall demanded he hold position. "Reinforcements are coming. The main human fleet will be stopped at our border. You just need to hold." Gran looked out at the Martian landscape, where fires burned and human fighters moved like ghosts between the craters. "I do not think you understand, Commander. These humans are not fighting to win. They are fighting because they cannot imagine doing anything else. This is not a war for them. This is survival. And they will not stop until every one of them is dead, or until we are. Back in space, Admiral Yoon Hana pushed toward the Corvani border. More battles, more losses, but also more victories. And with each victory, something strange began to happen. Other species started helping. The Solari sent intelligence reports, detailed information about Corvani fleet movements and weak points. "We cannot fight," Delegate Moran explained in a secret communication. "But we can watch, and we can share what we see." A species called the Varth, small traders who had always avoided conflict, began allowing human ships to resupply at their stations. "We have always been afraid of the Corvani," their leader admitted. "But watching you fight has made us ashamed of our fear." 2 more species sent ships. Old ships, small ships, but ships willing to fight alongside humans. They called themselves the Coalition of the Willing. During the Battle of Corvani Station 7, Hana's fleet captured enemy battle plans. What they found changed everything. The plans showed that humanity was just the first target. The Corvani intended to expand into the territories of 12 other species over the next 50 years. One by one, they would conquer or destroy any species they saw as a threat. The galaxy would become the Corvani Empire, and everyone else would serve or die. President Park broadcast the captured plans to every species in the galaxy. "Now you understand," he said. "This was never just about humanity. We were simply first. If we fall, you are next. All of you." Within a week, 5 more species joined the coalition. For the first time in galactic history, minor species were standing together against a major power. Delegate Naran arrived at the human embassy on Nexus Prime. She met with Ambassador Kang Jisoo in private. "You have done what no species has managed in 10,000 years, Moran said. "You have made the galaxy afraid of something other than each other. You have made us hope." Jisoo shook her head. "We just did what we had to do. That is what makes you remarkable." Moran took Jisoo's hand. "The Solari will stand with you. Not as observers anymore, as allies. Whatever comes next, you will not face it alone." Across the stars, the war continued. But humanity was no longer fighting by itself. The answer, the coalition fleet gathered at the edge of Corvani space. It was the largest combined force the galaxy had ever seen from minor species. 12 different races flying together, their ships forming a ragged but determined armada. At the center was the human fleet, battered from months of fighting but still strong. Admiral Yoon Hana looked at the tactical display on her bridge. The Corvani homeworld lay ahead, defended by their remaining fleet. Commander Thrall had pulled every ship from every outpost to protect their capital. It was their final stand. "All coalition vessels have reported ready, Admiral," her executive officer announced. Hana nodded slowly. They had come so far, lost so many. The faces of dead friends and colleagues haunted her dreams. But they were here now, at the end. "Open a channel to all ships," she ordered. Her image appeared on every screen in the coalition fleet. "This is Admiral Yoon Hana of the United Earth Federation. We stand at the gates of the enemy. Many of us have lost friends and family in this war. Many more may fall today. But I want you to remember something." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We are not here for conquest. We are not here for revenge. We are here because someone attacked our homes, and we answered. We are here because the galaxy said justice was too expensive, and we proved them wrong. We are here because when you strike at one of us, you strike at all of us." She looked at the display showing the Corvani fleet. "Today, we end this. Not with cruelty, not with hatred, but with the simple truth that some things cannot be allowed. Some lines cannot be crossed. Today, the Kovanni learn what happens when they cross that line. She straightened in her chair. All ships advance. The battle for the Kovanni homeworld was the largest space engagement in galactic history. 300 coalition ships against 400 Kovanni vessels. The sky above the Kovanni world burned with weapons fire and explosions. Admiral Hannah commanded from the front. Her flagship led assault after assault, breaking through Kovanni defensive lines. When one system failed, her crew rerouted power from another. When sections of the ship caught fire, damage control teams rushed to contain them. When crew members fell, others took their places. The Kovanni fought with desperation. This was their home, their world, everything they had built over thousands of years. Commander Thrall commanded from his own flagship, ordering his ships into formation after formation, trying to hold back the tide. But the tide was too strong. General Beak Sunho led the ground assault on Kovanni orbital stations. His troops moved through metal corridors, clearing room after room. The Kovanni soldiers they faced were fierce, but Sunho's people had been training for months. They had liberated Luna and Mars. They had learned how to fight in the dark, in the cold, in the places where every shadow could hide an enemy dot in the chaos of battle. Commander Thrall made a desperate decision. Deep within his flagship was a weapon that the Kovanni had built in secret. A planet killer. A device that could tear a world apart. It had been designed as a final option, a way to destroy any enemy that threatened the Empire. Now, Thrall ordered it aimed at Earth. If we fall, they fall with us, he snarled. Activate the weapon. Target the human homeworld. His crew hesitated. Some refused. Thrall killed them himself and began the activation sequence. On her bridge, Admiral Hannah saw the energy signature building in Thrall's flagship. Her tactical officer went pale. Admiral, that energy reading. It matches theoretical projections for a planet killer device. If they complete the activation, Hannah did not hesitate. All nearby ships, target that flagship. Maximum firepower. Stop that weapon at any cost. Every ship that could turn its weapons toward Thrall's vessel. Beams of energy and missiles crossed the space between them. The Kovanni flagship tried to evade, tried to shield itself. But there were too many attackers coming from too many directions. Admiral Hannah made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Ramming speed, she ordered. Target their weapon system. Her crew looked at her in shock. Her executive officer stepped forward. Admiral, if we do this, I know. Hannah's voice was calm. Evacuate all non-essential personnel. Get to the escape pods. I will guide the ship in manually. Admiral, no. We will stay with you. Hannah turned to look at her bridge crew. 37 people who had followed her through months of war, who had trusted her with their lives, who were now willing to die with her. Thank you, she said quietly, but I need you to survive. Someone has to tell our story. Someone has to go home. She activated the evacuation order. Alarms rang throughout the ship. Crew members rushed to escape pods. Some refused to leave, staying at their stations until Hannah personally ordered them out. In the end, she stood alone on the bridge of the Defiance. The ship was badly damaged, half its systems failing, but its engines still worked, and its course was locked. For Earth, she whispered. For everyone we lost, for everyone we saved. The Defiance struck Thrall's flagship at full speed, directly in the weapon housing section. The impact was catastrophic. Both ships were torn apart. The planet killer device, half activated, exploded in a burst of energy that destroyed everything within 100 kilometers. Admiral Yoon Hannah was thrown from the bridge as the ship disintegrated. She tumbled through space, her suit protecting her from the vacuum. Debris spun around her. Fire and light filled her vision. Then everything went dark. She woke up in a medical bay 3 days later. A support ship had found her floating among the wreckage, her suit's beacon still functioning. She had broken bones, internal injuries, and radiation damage. But she was alive. The battle? She croaked. The doctor smiled through tears. "We won, Admiral." The Corvani surrendered. "It's over." On the Corvani homeworld, the ruling council had removed Commander Threll's authority before his death. They had seen the battle turn against them. They had watched their fleet crumble. And they had made a choice. Overlord Vasca contacted President Park directly. "We surrender," she said. Her voice was flat, defeated. "What are your terms?" President Park's terms were simple. The Corvani would acknowledge their attack on humanity. They would pay reparations to the families of victims. They would permanently demilitarize the star systems near human space. They would hand over all officers who had participated in the attack for trial. But there would be no occupation, no revenge, no destruction of the Corvani Empire. "We do not want to rule you," President Park said. "We do not want to destroy you. We just want to be safe. Accept these terms, and the war ends today." Vasca studied him through the communication screen. "Why? After what we did to you, you could demand anything. You could take our worlds. Enslave our people. Why show mercy?" President Park was quiet for a moment. Because mercy is not weakness. Because ruling through fear is not victory. Because my people did not fight and die so we could become like you. He leaned forward. "We wanted justice. We got it. Now we want peace. That is all." It is all. The surrender was signed 1 week later. High Arbiter Velos convened an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Humanity was offered a permanent seat on the Security Committee. The coalition species were offered similar positions. President Park accepted the seat. But he proposed something more. "We do not want power," he told the council. "We want security, not just for humanity, but for every species that has ever feared being too small, too weak to defend itself." He gestured to the coalition delegates around him. "We propose a new agreement, a mutual protection compact. Any species that joins will be defended by all other members. No more watching from the sidelines while the innocent are destroyed. No more letting the powerful prey on the weak." Delegate Moran stepped forward. The Solari sign. One by one, other species added their names. Within a month, 30 races had joined the compact. The galaxy was changing. 1 year later, President Park visited Luna. The reconstruction was nearly complete. New domes rose where old ones had fallen. Gardens grew in places that had been rubble. Children played in parks built over former battlefields. He walked to a memorial site. A simple wall with names carved into it. 2.3 million names. Every person who had died in the attack. It would take a lifetime to read them all. A little girl approached him. She was maybe 8 years old. She carried a flower in her hands. "Are you the president?" She asked. "I am. My grandmother's name is on this wall." She pointed to a spot near the bottom. "She died protecting me. She pushed me into a shelter and stayed outside." President Park knelt down to her level. "I am so sorry." The girl shook her head. "It's okay. My mom says grandmother is a hero. She says all the people on this wall are heroes." She placed her flower at the base of the wall. "I'm going to be a hero too when I grow up. I'm going to protect people, like grandmother did." President Park felt tears in his eyes. He put a hand on the girl's shoulder. "I believe you will," he said. He stood and looked at the wall. So many names. So much loss. But also so much courage. So much love. These were the people who had refused to break. Who had fought and died and survived so that children could play in parks again. Across the galaxy, the old powers watched humanity rebuild. The Kovani were quiet, rebuilding their own society under the terms of surrender. Other aggressive empires took note of what had happened. The minor species stood taller than they ever had before. High Arbiter Velos recorded a note in the official history of the galaxy.